already addressed if there is any training program from a society. So your talk regarding integration of MiECT in perfusion training programs, I think, is now the right time to be answered. The question.
Okay. Can you hear me?
Yes, very good.
Yeah. Shall I'll do the presentation from my computer and I put you on share, or do you want to run the presentation from your end? No, I'll just go on share. Okay, we'll try. Yes.
Okay,
you can see the presentation now?
Yes, we can. Yes, please go on.
Okay, thank you very much for inviting me to this meeting. And I'm sorry that I was delayed, and I'm sorry that I'm not with you in Thessaloniki. It was exciting the last time I was there, but this time I will do it over the webinar. Now, as you know, I'm working as a consultant in cardiothoracic surgery in Norway, and I'm also professor for thoracic surgery in Norway, but I'm also chairman of the EBCP, and we had some exciting time the last 2 years because we were working on guidelines which were recently published just before the EACTS meeting. I'm sure you had a chance to have a look at that. If not, then you will find it in 3 different journals, and you can look at that. Maybe we have time to talk about this as well. So, conflicts of interest to declare. Now, the scope of the problem as I see it is the following. There is a lot of literature, there's a lot of papers presented, but the penetration of the method in the daily use in Europe and in the US is not as high as one would wish. And of course, you, the society, are organizing webinars, and we also had sessions about MiECT in EACTS meeting, but still there's not so many centers that use minimal bypass circuits. And the question is, why is that? I think one of the reasons is that perfusionists might find it difficult to start on their own. They might feel a bit insecure when they start with this new method, and they would probably need more help than they have. Now, talking about the perfusion schools, I think a lot of things have happened, and I talked to several people from perfusion schools. I talked to Frank Merkle, who is with you or over the internet, and they are doing teaching at the Berlin School of Perfusion. They do teaching in MiECT, and it's a program that runs very well. I also talked to people from the Scandinavian Perfusion School, and there is also dedicated MiECT training. They have lectures on MiECT, and they also have a wet lab, and I will come back to that. Now here, just show you some slides about what they do. It's a whole lecture, and they do a lot in that respect. And I have to say, I was impressed by what Deborah has put together for the Scandinavian Perfusion School. You see that they teach about the different systems. What is an open system? What is a closed system? They talk about the different advantages and disadvantages. They talk about what do we mean by MiECT in the different centers. For example, what is MiECT in Thessaloniki? What is MiECT in Regensburg? What is MiECT in Kosvik? I hope Adrian agrees that this is correct, what stands there. So that the scholars really learn what is MiECT. There's also a good explanation about the different types of. And they also really nicely point out what is important about safety, what should be done, that the most important key is air management, volume management, and so on. And of course, that it is a team effort. So I think that what is being done in the perfusion schools already now is quite good. So I suspect that the big schools, they all have integrated MiECT in the curriculum, as far as I know. Now, the problem is, as I see it, is the practical training. I told you that the Scandinavian school is using wet labs. And of course, that is very popular with the students, that they can try the different systems and the setup and learn how to do a wet lab. But the thing is, I don't think that most students get confident enough to drive home and say, okay, you guys, now let's start with MiECT. It has to be done differently. And in most perfusion schools, the problem is that the practical training is not part of the school. The practical training is often done on the job in the respective centers where the students come from. So MiECT is not so common that all trainees get exposed in their everyday work with the method. And that is where we have to start. And I thought, really, we have to look at how is it being done in other fields of cardiac surgery. And the most important example here, of course, is proctoring for TAVI. When the new method of catheter-based implantation of aortic valves was introduced to medicine, the companies were very eager to organize a well-designed training to avoid the learning curve as much as possible. And the idea of having somebody with you who shares the responsibility and who supervises what you're doing, that is what proctoring is all about. So very often you have a system where you get certified, and you get certified by doing a course and then have proctoring for a certain amount of cases, for example, 10 or 15 TAVI cases, and then you can start doing it on your own. And I think we should have a similar system for running MiECT. Another option would be to have visiting students in the well-known MiECT centers, that the students can stay there for a longer time. Of course, the main problem is how to organize that. And of course, that's not easy to answer that question. Another option would be to exchange students. For example, that students from the same school, that places where MiECT is being used, that they can exchange the students, so that the ones that don't get exposed to MiECT go to the center where they do it, and the others go to the center where the student comes from. But I think the most important thing would be proctoring, to increase the awareness, to have a team, the whole team that is being taught, the anesthetist, the surgeon, and the perfusionist. So it would be important to have a cooperation on this issue between the perfusion schools, the society, and industry. And that's a very important point. Industry has been very important for developing training for TAVI procedures, but of course they offer a bit of training for minimally invasive extracorporeal circulation, but I think this effort should be increased, and there should be a stronger cooperation. And the question, of course, arises, who will pay for that effort? And I can tell you, it will not be the Mexicans. We have to find other solutions how to get this done, how to get payment for this collaborative effort. So in conclusion, integration of MiECT has already happened in a number of perfusion schools, but the main problem, as I see it, is the practical training, so that we can increase further the penetration of this method. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Just
Thank you, Alexander.
a bit about the pre-Christmas time in Trondheim.
Right. Before we finalize the session from our secretary, Public Chronics Antonitsis, about the political talk on expanding MiECTiS, there is a question from the audience saying, is there any space for type 1 circuits or not? So I don't know if someone from the panel should answer that. Maybe Pascal Starinieri? Is there any space? We can we see the chat? Is there any space for type 1 circuits, contemporary or not?
In my opinion, type 1, no.
Not about you. It's a general question. Should we use type 1 circuits without the bubble trap?
No.
Oh,
Sorry, no. In my opinion, not. No, that's what we use on ICU.
Yes, yeah. It's a ECLS system. So
Yeah, we go for safety.
I agree. Yeah,
definitely.
I agree with you. I mean, the contemporary technology and all these efforts for us to go for modular systems, I do not find any reason to go back to type 1 circuit, which is okay for the ICU running an ECMO. But going into theaters with all this unexpected scenario that might happen, I don't believe there is a space now for type 1 MiECT system anymore.
Kyriakos,
Yes, Frank, I think Merkle wants, yeah,
yes,
please.
We have just talked about, and Alexander has pointed out that there's a need for more training. And we had a private chat between all those people, like on the Zoom meeting. And we thought that it would be time to create a MiECT Academy so that the MiECT Society could be the leader of that thing. So because there are perfusion schools, like in Berlin, we have a simulation lab, we do training. There's one in Netherlands, they're the Scandinavians. So why not have a structure where there is a universal training with simulation, and then we can go from there?
Well, I personally find it a good idea, and people like you and Adrian Bauer and Alexander Wahba, you do know that from the first beginning I thought that we should collaborate with the industry and trying to find ways for such initiatives, and maybe form even an accreditation sponsored by industry, maybe, for doing such trainings or such academy. So if you think it's the right time now to go for it, us as society are very eager for going through that, because that will enhance, the possible users of these systems, and we can discuss it later on as a working group.
Sure.
But thank you for the suggestion, and I'm glad that the EBCP wants to be first. That would embrace it. Maybe German society from Adrian Bauer also would cooperate. What do you think, Adrian?
Yes, I do. I think that's the right way to go forward, to have more structure in it, and I will fully support it, also from the German society side on.
Good. Well, this is something that emerged from this webinar. So let's finalize the talk with Polychronis, who will discuss about expanding MiECTiS.
I would like to thank you all first for